Alright, first of all, let's get the basic stuff done. As per usual, I always start these episodes not knowing where the fuck it's going to go. And, well, I try to make it somewhat mature and adult-like, so it's told by a story from adults in the Elder Scrolls world, that sort of thing. So, Serana and her are young women. Kind of young women. I guess Serana isn't. I don't know how to really explain that one, to be honest with you. I'll try to go a bit further, deeper into that the longer we go. But I think, personally, I might have dragged this on for a little bit too long. But that kind of comes down to me being a character guy, not a story guy. I think that's kind of my fault, that I get a little bit too entangled into the characters than I do the actual story. And a lot of the times, as you can see, they're all blending and matching. And I mean, it's exciting for me to do, having all these characters I've created come together and actually feel like people communicating with other people from all different walks of life. But sometimes, as when I'm doing this, I'm thinking, maybe drag this on for a little bit too long. But who knows? Maybe it's essential to the part of the story, the part of the character, especially where it goes later on. Now, this, like I say in all my videos, I kind of start the story where it ends, and I had no idea where it goes into the future, and at this very point, I had no idea. I just thought I'd have, the young lovers kind of enveloped into their thing since it was dark. I was like, why not? This is a story told by adults, for adults, and that sort of stuff. Now, Sigan does talk a bit about this. It's like she finds the idea of two women sleep together repulsive. Like just seeing it in her brain just makes her sick. Like, for me, two dudes. But she 100%, supports any sort of relationship like that, because her sister likes women, and she lives in a part of the Skyrim, in my Skyrim, where, Nords are very traditional and very racist, so they don't like Nords having sex with other races, especially if it's a Nord woman or a Nord man, or especially, even worse, two of the same sex, in their eyes. If they're racist, they're 100% going to be goddamn homophobic. And Sigan kind of refers to that, if her people were more accepting of these kind of relationships, then the Stormcloaks would be bolstered big time. That it's going to be a better place if people could just love who they wanted to love. And again, this comes from her being affiliated with her sister like women. And a few people know about it, and she's still kind of surprised that not everyone knows about it. But yeah, this is kind of her little, she doesn't, the idea of it sickens her. I think she's my only full-on straight character. My god, male writer syndrome. But yeah, she does talk about wishing that it was a bit better for her people to be more accepting. Now, I do feel that this story was dragged on a little bit too long, this episode, but I think that comes down to me being a character guy and not a story guy. I mean, I get too involved into the stories of the characters instead of the overall story, and I think I definitely dragged it on for too long. But there's definitely some meaty parts of this story for these characters and their journeys with the Dragonborn. And I did like a lot of it. I mean, not everything's meant to be exciting, I guess, but I think maybe I might have dragged on for a little bit too long when it comes to certain things with characters or just the story itself. Now, this moment here, Sigan talks about sort of the responsibilities of the Dragonborn, that the fates picked right. Because she does mention that, in her hands, in her sister's hands, if they were Dragonborn, there'd be so much more destruction involved, if they were Stormcloak Dragonborns. They would have destroyed a lot of the Skyrim, maybe, in their conquest. So many more people would have died. And same thing with Tonrak. You would have been too glorified, too, drinking in the inns and sleeping with women and, maybe butchering people of his powers. And same thing with Topher being a thief and all this sort of stuff. It would have had a negative impact in the world if it wasn't chosen to be Ragni. So it's kind of the whole fate thing, that the gods decided who to be Dragonborn sort of thing. They picked the right person, because Ragni is kind of kind-hearted and thoughtful. She's been through some shit, and she's seen a lot of things, and she's learnt a lot of things over her journey. But I think at this current time of her character development, that we've come to the decision that she's a heroine. She has the best interests at heart for people. She's taken the responsibility of being the Dragonborn, and she wants to save lives with it. She doesn't want to waste lives, and she's just your typical, genuinely good female character. It might very well change into the future, the story, if someone close to her does die. She might become a bit more harsh, she might become a bit more weathered or seasoned due to her losing somebody. And Cecilia does talk about that later on. Now, I do like to chuck in some random stuff in here, like, some just random character interactions, because like I said, I'm a character guy. I cannot help myself. And I thought about just getting some random people around the fire and having a conversation. I thought, why not this group of characters? Because there's some reoccurring characters we haven't seen in a very long time, and there's some characters that have some history in Markarth, right? And I've really liked that because it's kind of, I wouldn't say Minerva's journey started here, but Lyra's, and this is Sodi. Now, Sodi I have not shown off in a very long time. She was in like, I don't remember what chapter it was, it might have been chapter 10, but she's the one that Centaurus found after he'd found the Jagged Crown, and he found her in a cage inside some small little like bandit fort, and he saved her, and she joined him afterwards. That's her. So if you've been a fan of the series for a long time, there you go. Here is Sodi, and the update. She hasn't died yet. She's got some scars for a weathering of her time since being freed and joined the Legion and stuff like that. But she's still alive, and you know she deeply cares for Centaurus because he saved her life. But that sort of thing. But yeah, she kind of talks down while she's sitting down to Sigun Beckle, and Sigun laughs at it. And she's kind of mentioned this in the past that she doesn't like the idea of young Nord serving the Legion. But again, that's kind of changed because she hears a story and realizes that an Imperial saved her life, and that Imperial was the person she's got some rather deep feelings for. And you know, she doesn't really mind anymore because Centaurus saved her life. She's just got to put on this facade of not liking Centaurus, and that's going to be a bit of a tricky one, especially for me, having to like, I feel like it's just a pain in my ass trying to manage it all. But yeah, so what I liked about this, and I didn't even realise it until I was there, but I had both Lyris and Minerva here, and their journeys starts here. Lyris's journey starts here. She was in one of the earliest chapters on my story, where she was in the Silver Blood Mine, and you know, eventually Minerva got herself put in there, and she ended up getting everyone out, including Lyris, and Lyris went and joined the Companions and met Tonarok, and her story started because of Minerva's story, and they kind of came back to the inn and had a drink the night and got on the piss, and remembered how kind of where they came from, sort of thing. It's kind of a beautiful story in a way because, you know, she first met Minerva that saved her life, and then she went and met Tonarok that was, you know, became one of her best friends in the Companions, and eventually down the line on their journeys, these two characters, her best friend and the woman that saved her life, became close. This character right here, though, I like this one because, you know, it's like, what the fuck? You're seeing a high elf fight for the Stormcloaks? Like, that's wild, dude. But there's some things in that, because at the end of the day, her father was a Nord, her mother was a high elf, and she would have been born in Skyrim, and who knows what happened to her mother. But her father, she basically went to aid the Empire against the Dominion, and her father followed her because he didn't want to. He wanted to, you know, like any father does, they go to protect their child, and unfortunately he died in that. And the Empire surrendered, and she saw that as a waste of her father's life, that his life meant nothing to them, and she joined the Stormcloaks. She is a Nord at heart. She is half Nord, and even her skin colour, that I've made it a Nord skin colour, over being sort of a greenish or a yellowish sort of Ultima skin colour. So she is a half-breed. She's not a full Altmore, of course, and she is born and raised here in Skyrim. I did give her the Nord voice, but in these conversations, it's kind of weird having Sigurd the same voice with her. But it happens a lot in Skyrim, of course, where NPCs will talk to each other the exact same voice. But I try to cut it down as much as possible where they're not directly talking to each other. But I decided to give her the female even-tone voice. But she is, truthfully, a Nord, and just in an Ultima's body. She's a trans Nord. Oh no, I'm not going to start those jokes. But yeah, I just kind of want this little interaction between characters. I thought, why the fuck not, you know? It's get a bit more backstory on characters I've talked about long in the past. And we get to catch up some characters that, you know, like all these guys are kind of from past chapters. You know, they've been talked about and they've been aired and they've been shown off. And why not have a little, you know, update on them maybe a year or two later in my life, but also in the stories, things like that. Now, for this scene right here, they talk about their parents, and three of them don't even know who all their parents. I mean, Minerva knows who her parents were. She didn't like them; they were bad people, and she talks about her parents only once, and that's in the very introduction of her character. And I think, like, what is it, chapter 4, when she says that they were heavily involved with the Dominion, and she did not like that. So she left home when she was like 15, 16, and went north into, I think it was like High Rock and Hammerfell. And then eventually swung around many years later into Skyrim. But yeah, it's, you know, Sigurd right here talks about the only parent she really knows is her mother. And it's you know, she talks about having paintings of them. Now, imagine like I mean, if mostly anyone that's lost their parent due to birth or before they have recollection memories of their mother or their father, there's always going to be a photo lying around of them to see who they were. But in this time, they didn't. I mean, Lyris has no idea who her mother was or who her father was. And, you know, Sigurd has no idea who her father was yet. And she's, you know, she gets to see her mother, and we've all seen her mother, and I pretty much made him a blend of both. I mean, she looks exactly... They are twins after all, but... funny enough, if you look back at, you know, the prequel chapter that I did, you'll see that Sigurd, Topher and Marana and Sigurd are pretty much carbon copies of each other. They do look quite similar in certain aspects, and I like to do that with especially the family members. If you go back and you look at the younger version of Ragni's mother, you'll actually see that she looks very much like her. And I like to do that. You know, it's kind of the cool little thing of being the mirror of your parent, that sort of thing. But yeah, let's just listen to it.
I never met any of my parents. My mother died giving birth to us, but she was a hero. She served as Ulfric's housecarl. She was a brave warrior. Luckily, Gran has paintings of her, so at least we know what she looked like. Anyway, I better get a move on to see this prefect Quintilius.
I just want to say, I don't remember her name, but I do use AI for this voice, and Eleven's Lads jumps out of the fucking water and scares me sometimes. It really does, of how perfect it sounds, or like how it just mumbles words, and I don't know, man. It's almost sounding almost human, and it's freaky as fuck because...
And Lyra, do you have any blue paint left? I've run out.
That's very Nordic style. Like, the voice actress, I don't know if she's from Norway or not, but how well, like, that's probably my favourite voice when it comes to my entire series, is Sigurd's, right? Because it's a female Nord voice. It is the inherital race of Skyrim's voice, right? And it's such a beautiful voice. And the AI just mimics it on point with its accent. And the way that it says words, man, it's unbelievable. Like, you know, if I say Sigurd, I say Sigurd. But the AI will go, Sigurd, Brianna, Ragni. You know, like, it will have that tongue roll, that sort of tongue where it hits the top of your mouth. I don't know how to even pronounce it, but it's a Nordic sort of thing where they use a lot of words. But always sort of... It's freaky to me that it just mimics the voice and the accent to actually speak like the voice actress did for Skyrim that did the Nord female voice line. And it's fucking freaky. But I love it because it sounds so real and makes these characters feel a lot more real. Now, this little part here, obviously I want to do a bit more story of the new characters, especially Centaurus' replacement. Julia Quintilius, who's a trusted friend and soldier of his, one he's always looked up to as a boy and that sort of thing. Now, again, this isn't just to put her into the story. It's kind of introduce a new character, and it's a character from a subscriber called Matthew Crooks 29. Now, he doesn't obviously remember it all, but a long time ago, I don't know what it was, it might have been a post, but he put in some sort of character, like, you know, that he liked. And he gave it the name Karsten Freewinter, the son of Freewinter from Windhelm. And, you know, it had something to do with the butcher killing a wench that he slept with that had a child, something like that. I don't exactly remember it all. So I kind of just went and did my own little thing there, somewhat similar to a point to where, you know, and I even at the point at making this chapter right here, I'm not even sure I even, I think I did. I'm pretty sure I did. But I even added more backstory into him, that he grew up with Sigurd. Because Sigurd grew up in where Tova lives, and that's across the road. It's pretty much over the bridge from Windhelm. And, you know, if he's Freewinter's son, then he would have grown up with the kids there, and that would have been, you know, whoever else was a kid then, but obviously Brianna and Sigurd Berklaw. And so his backstory I changed to, you know, instead of the whole butcher killing his wife, or his wench wife, it was maybe Trollbane's son that killed his lover because she was a dark elf, because he was sleeping with, you know, Karsten was sleeping with a dark elf woman, and like I said, the Nords aren't very likeable, those situations. They're very racist individuals, a lot of them, especially in the East. And so they, you know, when he was off working, they found her and they beat her to death. And, you know, thought nothing of it because she was just some trashy dark elf from the Greywater that no one would give a flying shit that she died. You know, and he found out about it, and he went in there and he slaughtered him. And the reason why he's got such a massive bounty on him, because Trollbane is the Thane of Ulfric Stormcloak, his second in command. And, again, he's going to want Karsten dead over everything, because Karsten killed his son. So I just sort of add some more characters in there, add a bit more backstory. So instead of the Butcher killing his missus, it's, you know, it was Stormcloaks, and that's why it's in the Legion. And also growing up with Sigun, and then they were teenagers, they would have had a bit of romance about him and stuff like that before eventually, you know, Carsten's father was a legionary and didn't see any sort of joy in the war, and maybe talked his son out of not following in Ulfric's, you know, maybe who knows, maybe Carsten's father was still a proud legionary, still proud of the Empire, but couldn't verbally say that, and maybe Carsten was too, that he, you know, that he was raised to believe the Empire was the good guys. So when Sigun went off to join Ulfric, he didn't go with Sigund, and they broke up, and she went her own ways to go and fight for Ulfric Stormcloak and his rebellion, and Carsten stayed behind and eventually fell in love with another woman, a dark elf, who was eventually murdered and killed while she was pregnant, and he killed the people responsible and fled and joined the Legion, because the safest place he could be is against the people who they're fighting against. We also go into that later on with the Wood Elf that joins the Stormcloaks. So again, his story is somewhat still there, and it's even cooler to have, you know, the idea that he knew Sigun when they were kids. They grew up together as kids. They romanced around when they were teenagers and young adults, and then their lives kind of go in two different directions. As soon as Sigun leaves, he falls in love with another woman, and the shit happens, and he joins. And he's on the way to becoming a Vanguard, you know, and so that's kind of going to be cool, especially seeing another Vanguard fighting alongside the Dragonsborn forces that isn't solely Centaurus or Julia. And so, yeah, it's a character from Matthew Crooks 29, he's a subscriber. He did this a long time ago. He then disappeared for a long time, and it's because he was actually, he's a soldier. I don't know what country or who he serves for. But he, came back a couple months ago, actually, and I thought he died or something. But yeah, he's back. So, Matthew, mate, this is your character. This is Carsten. I forgot his name, the grey dude. But yeah, this is your dude. So he's now in the story. That's kind of all I wanted to say about this. Now, Julia does inquire to his past in Windhelm, but he doesn't want to talk about it because he doesn't really, he's his commanding officer, and she understands a lot. She's got a dark history herself after the Great War. You know, she kind of really sunk into alcoholism and hookers, you know, prostitutes, whatever that kind of floated a boat, helped to get by after everything she had done and seen. And so she goes, yep, I understand, dude, you don't have to tell me. But then fate would have Sigund walking past Carsten, you know, old friends. I mean, even when you grow up together, you know, when you walk past someone in the shops, you know, 10 years after school, 20 years after, and you see their face, you're like, is that, holy fuck, it is. It's that moment right here where Sigund realises that it's actually Carsten. And he does get it, because, again, at the end of the day, you kind of want to know his backstory, if I'm going to introduce him. But he does tell Sigund his backstory. He refused to tell Julia, because, again, he does know her. They grew up together. You know, they you know, she grew up outside of Windhelm, but they grew up together as kids. And I love the backstory, how they were just, you know, kids running around playing, you know, like in Imperials and Freedom Fighters and stuff like that. Because at this time, there wasn't the Stormcloak Rebellion when they were kids, because Ulfric was still in jail. So it was just the Freedom Fighters, you know, rebels. And he does get into terms of, you know, what happened afterwards, why he chose to join the Legion. And she somewhat understands. I mean, she's been through a lot herself, especially with the Imperial side of things, and seeing and hearing stuff, you know, with the Legions. I've had Centaurus a lot sort of kind of understand the rebellion a lot, and it's Sigund's time to kind of understand the Legion side a lot. You know, these characters are, you know, they're red and blue at the very start, but when they come together, their colours start to soften, and they kind of become a bit grey to each other, and that's kind of the whole point. That's why I'm a character dude. I just want to really get in depth with these characters and really explore them. But yeah, Carsten does tell Sigund what actually happened to him after Sigund had left, that he found new love, and that she was murdered and killed, and that he basically went off to join the Legion. And he's now an officer in the Legion. He's on the ranks becoming a Vanguard and stuff like that. But she doesn't hate him for what he's become. She understands. I mean, this is kind of her journey too. Everyone's journey, like, you know, Journeys of the Dragonborn is every character's journey, to kind of understand a lot more of the world of Skyrim, the people they're with, and all that sort of stuff. And Sigund sees a lot more that, you know, the Stormcloaks aren't just the heroes anymore. Same thing with Centaurus. You know, they're basically the flaws in their own sides and their own views and stuff like that, which kind of makes them a lot more adjustable to each other. You know what I mean? So yeah, I thought I wanted to get Cass's backstory out there, and he'd actually tell someone that he knew. And I didn't know they were going to have this conversation until I realised that actually Sigon was going to walk past, and I was like, whoa, we're like catch up with old friends. And yeah, I thought it'd be a cool little moment because, like I said, I'm a character guy. These stories are written for the characters, not for the overall story of Skyrim. We all know how Skyrim goes, you know. We all know the Dragonborn kills Alduin, but again, how it's told to you is kind of the beauty in it, especially with the characters that follow this journey, follow the Dragonborn on defeating Alduin. I guess they're the most exciting things about the story for me. It's not how the story is told, but it's who tells the story and how they blend together. For me as a character guy, this is what really makes it fun for me. Now, Sigurd and Julia have their conversation with each other. Now, Julia's a very, down-to-earth commander. She doesn't really, she's not really disciplined. Like she became a soldier because she was in the midst of a war, of a great war. She became a soldier because she had to. She didn't, she wasn't this formal military etiquette sort of call me by my rank, yes sir, no sir bullshit. She's just very down to earth, and she can definitely see Centaurus and Sigurd have a thing going on. She's but at the end of the day, she doesn't give a fuck. I mean, she understands the precipice of war, of having to do what you have to do. They're in this position because they have to be, not because they wanted to be. And so she doesn't give a flying shit if Sigurd's down there gobbling on Centaurus' nuts. She doesn't give a shit. At the end of the day, this is where they are. This is what's going on. They can't help that. But at the end of the day, she will be like, I'll be going for you after this is all done. If we're both alive when the war starts again, I will be trying to kill you because that was my job. And she's just telling Sigurd, it's like, mate, make it a bit more believable because, your eyes are sort of beating your words. Now some time has gone by because Sarana and Ragni are both young women. In a sense, I mean, Sarana's not really young. So I didn't really devise this story until I got to it because this is kind of what I do. I just create stories on the spot. I do the Disney, but apparently people like them. And Freya mentions out in the hunt that she came, she saw a dragon flying over Caspar, where they were stationed in the early days of the Dragonborn's team. And she tells us, and Dragon's like, holy shit, we need to go. We need to help them. Because she made a promise to them long ago that she would help these people if the dragon came. And it never happened while she was there. But still, her word means everything to her. And Cecilia is very cold, and we'll get a lot more into that in the future of this. But she's, she doesn't like the Richmond. She's seen this shit happen a lot of times, a lot of bad stuff, and it's understandable to a point of view. But Ragni is a young woman. She hasn't seen what Cecilia's seen. She made a promise, and the people, the Richmond there didn't hurt her or didn't attack him or didn't try to do anything to him. And so it's just a view of two different ideologies coming together and clashing, pretty much. A young, kind-hearted person who hasn't seen too much evil to a woman that has been alive for way too long and has seen way too much shit. And, yeah, it's just... Ragni said that she would one day help him if there was a dragon there, and she's close and nearby, so she decided to walk in that direction. I mean, she's not going to run because, that armor takes a lot of the power out of her. And she will during combat, of course. I have taken away all the perks that kind of make her... What I've done with this armor run, I don't know if it's really believable, but I have taken away all her speed perks. So her run faster in armor, run faster while blocking. I think I have. Pretty sure I have. And all the sort of movement perks that you get that increase your speed with weapons drawn, weapons blocking, and armor and that sort of stuff. So it is a lot more... She's a lot slower. She's a lot more defensible, of course. She won't take the hits as hard anymore, but she is a lot stronger. But also weaker due to her armor. And over time, she will get stronger, and she will mold into the armor and move it around a lot quicker. The longer she uses it. But at this time, it is quite strenuous because it's the heaviest armor in the game. So yeah, and it kind of brings back some memories. I mean, this is where it kind of all started for the Dragonborn's team. I mean, this is kind of where it was just her, Centaurus, Sigurd, Cecilia, Freya, and a couple of their followers going to this place, and by the end of it, it was just crowded. You had the mages, you had the College of Winterhold, you had the companions rock up, you had so many more people, and they had to move out because it was getting too bloody crowded. I mean, it was this is kind of where it all started for them, and yeah, I just coming back here is like deja vu for me, and this is kind of where I spend the rest of of the episode, because it's just so much to bring back to those moments on the early days of, you know, the Dragonborn story, at least when they met the Blades. There's so much there, and I do love going back to old places. I mean, that's the idea of storytelling, you know, like, things do get a bit pasty, you know, even I feel that these chapters that it's turning it into a bit too much of a drama than it is an actual story. But coming back to these places after so much time not being there, it's fun to explore, especially when you've got someone that wasn't there to begin with. Yeah. Now, these dragons, I kind of want to... I have been testing the Dragonborn, right, as an NPC using shouts, and she does use these shouts with a certain mod that comes on where she'll use Dragon Rend. But I kind of want dragons to realise who they're facing and be like, oh shit, nah, I'm out of it, and they'll fly off into the distance and disappear. Because it kind of makes more sense. Like, if you notice that the Dragonborn's down there, the one thing that can actually kill you, you're not going to stick around, right? You're not going to stick around. So I want to kind of build a system in place where the dragons are going to realise who they're actually fighting, and they're going to piss off and fly away because they don't want to die. I mean, they can't die unless it's to the Dragonborn. And when you realise that one thing that can permanently kill you, you do not want to be there. So... sort of things where, like, she'll go to hunt dragons across the other side of Skyrim, but they will take off and leave because they don't want to die. Because, you know, the only thing that can kill them is the Dragonborn. I'm going to keep repeating myself like an idiot. Anyway, this dragon lands, and I didn't actually even realise this, but somehow Minerva got badly injured. I didn't even notice it, man, because normally all my followers have a small health regen pool, so over time they'll regen their health back. But Minerva didn't. She had bugger all health, and I was like, holy shit, she almost died. And that was freaky because... again, she's got no real story preference in the future when it comes to after all this sort of stuff. But she kind of does. A lot of this, like a lot of the aftermath of the Dragonborn's journeys is what Cecilia's cleaning up when it comes to Blackreach or Apocrypha or things like that. She's kind of the one that kind of chases up on those leads the Dragonborn left behind. And she almost died. And I was like, holy shit, that's kind of nuts. So, yeah, I had to like put a little scene there where she was badly wounded, and yeah, I didn't see her physically get bullied, so I just had to right into the story, I guess. The Ragnar was a bit late, you know. A lot of them got butchered and slaughtered by the Draga and the Dragon. And she finds the very chieftain she promised to help. She finds him dead. And she blames herself for spending the morning with Serana between her legs, because if she wasn't idling by having sex, that she could have been out there earlier and she could have arrived sooner to help save their lives. And that's kind of what people do. They blame themselves for actions, even if they had no chance of stopping it. He could have died even before she opened her legs up for Serana, and it wouldn't have really mattered. She would have blamed herself for being too late regardless. And it's sad, but she did honour the promise. You know, she really did. She said that she would aid them if she needed to, and she saved the lives that she could. You know, more than half their forces were wiped out. But again, it's the matter that she came. And then she sticks around afterwards, as we all know. Which shows, you know, like, I like that I've written this character to a heroic standpoint. When I first was doing Ragnar, people didn't like her. They really did not like her at all. She was naive and kind of went back in her word. People just didn't like her. And I liked that because my whole entire idea with her was like the Ahsoka effect from Star Wars, where Ahsoka first arrived in the Clone Wars. People didn't like her. She was young, she was snarky, she was a know-it-all. And then by the end of the Clone Wars, she's the most beloved character of the Clone Wars animated series. And hopefully I've done that where people actually really enjoy Ragnar right now, that she's become sort of this young woman, you know, that knew bugger all to that has learnt so much in a time, but there's still so much more to grow for her, hopefully. If someone close to her does die, she will kind of become a bit more weathered. And again, I don't know what will happen. I mean, this is a sandbox storytelling. This is exactly what it is. So her story could definitely change in the future, where she either remains this beacon of light, or that beacon of light gets snuffed out a bit and kind of becomes a candle in a very large dark room. But yeah, so with Minerva being injured, I kind of wanted to explore the two Daedra, that, you know, the commanders that follow, Starter and Dylora. Starter and Dylora are NPCs added. Well, Starter is introduced into the Creation Club, Golden Saints and Dark Seducers. Elora is introduced in the extended cuts version of that, which is awesome. They've actually got some... They're actual in-game NPCs. You can find Starter in the Shivering Isles DLC. I'm not too sure about Morrowind, if she shows up in Morrowind. I think she might. In Elder Scrolls Online, she's actually in the Alikir Desert as like a world boss you can fight. Dylora, during that time, actually served Molag Bol, which is fucking wild, man, because You know, the Mazkin, the purple ones, are actually the nice Daedra to mortals, and the Golden Saints, which are the beautiful ones, are the arseholes to mortals. And yet, here's Dylura, the kinder out of the two, who once served the Daedric Prince of rape and domination. I mean, fuck me, the perfect woman, you know? Like, nice, but also you turn your back, dagger in the guts, you know? Like, I don't know, man. It's so weird to think this nice Daedra once served one of the most evilest Daedric princes out there. So, we get this little scene where basically starters like, if you touch her, if you touch the artifact, we will kill you. And it kind of gives the Dragonborn a pretty clear picture that they're not there because, you know, what is it, friggin', oh, I forgot his name, Shirogarath sent these guys to protect the Dragonborn from Minerva. No, they are there for a different person, but she learns that they're not there to actually aid her. Are they there to aid Minerva or a certain other playable character, you know, that maybe they have some history with. Sorry about that noise in the background. I've got someone outside doing whippersnipping, but yeah, it's pretty much, you know, Serana gets a bit angry here, and I don't blame him because, you know, the Dragonborn's the love of their life, and and she's like, she threatens to send Starter back in a box to Shirogarath, and Ragnar gets a little bit excited. I like to write this sort of stuff because I also hate it when I hear it. I'm like, oh, you pervert. But again, I mean, this is a story of two young women, quotation marks, one of them being an ancient young woman, which she is still young because she's might live for a very long time, but she is still, through that entire time of her life, she was mothered and fathered, you know, into a certain point of view, I guess you could say. She's never really grew out of the age that she turned. Now we get into this. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I've got two characters here that are mixed with both of them, both the romance between the mage and the warrior. We've got Lyris, who first met Minerva and then met Tonarok, and we've got Ilia, who was saved by Tonarok, or helped Tonarok basically defeat her mother. And, you know, in that early chapters, long before they became the mage, long before they became the College of Winterhold characters, or even the Harbinger characters. So these characters, they've both met the different sorts of, you know, the warrior and the mage, you know, the guild characters that have fallen for each other, or just been with each other. And it's kind of like this little mix of blend of just history storytelling of these two characters. Like I said, it's kind of cool, you know, having Ilia sit there when she's the one that met Tonarok and then joined Minerva. And it's kind of cool seeing that, you know, Lyris, where she's the one that met Minerva and then Tonarok. They're kind of opposites of each other in a way. They met the opposite character. You know, one met the mage, then met the warrior. One met the warrior, then met the mage. And I kind of like that dynamic of how these two characters came to be part of the Dragonborn story. Ilia is a useless NPC in the game once you've done it. She basically stays at the keep. She killed her mother. So I decided to add her to the story to where after, you know, that she goes to the College of Winterhold and becomes a college student. She wants to learn magic the right way instead of the horrible way that her mother taught her. You know, improve her life. And then the Dragonborn comes along, she joins up, and she follows. So making that character a lot more useful, because I loved that in this game too. Making existing characters a lot more useful, a lot more thought out, you know, and giving them a lot more meaning to than just being a boring NPC. That's what I love about this game, is turning existing NPCs into actual characters. There is a point, basically, where Minerva, you know, calls Tonarok a fool, and then kind of Lyris has to, like, put her in a place, kind of, like, not in a bad way, but she tells about how Tonarok was a nice person to her, because Lyris is a very large individual, right? She's inspired from the Elder Scrolls Online character. She's the inspiration of inspiration. I've said this a few times. If you're new, I'll explain it really quickly. As a kid, she grew up reading stories, or having the orphan person at the time that wasn't good other kind, basically talking about the ancient heroes of Skyrim, and she found a book that referenced the companions, you know, of, you know, like the Lyris Titanborn character, and she realised that she was a Nord and she was tall like her, and so she basically took her identity, made her own, and here she is, Lyris, inspiration of inspiration. And she's a very, very large individual, and when she went to the companions, they obviously took her in because she was going to be a very large woman, a very good combat soldier, you know, very good in combat. But they never really got along with her, or never really tried to be kind with her because she was a little bit tall and a little bit freakish, and, you know, probably thought her was a little bit too unhinged and dangerous or whatever. But Tonrak was quite good to her. He treated her nicely, and yeah, sure, he did try to get into his pants. It's kind of his characteristics. He loves the posse, and once he realised that she wasn't really keen for that, he kind of, yeah, that's all right, but you're a pretty big chick, and you'll have my back, and I'll have yours, and that's all it needs to be. So he's not your total drunkard, idiot, dick and everything that walks kind of character. He's got a sense of honour to him. After all, he is part of the companions. He is honourable, in a certain sense. If it, when it comes to vagina, it might skip a few beats when it comes to certain things, but overall, he's a very honourable man. I kind of like this because Ragna's going out looking for Cecilia, and Starter's like, fuck off. I don't want to hear you, don't talk to me. I don't give a shit. And Ragna's like, she's young, she doesn't really know what these Daedra are. But we all do if you've ever played Oblivion or any other sort of game. You realise that the Orioles are quite mean, and the Mazkin, the Dark Seducers, are quite pleasant. And so I kind of reaffirmed this by adding that into the story, that this is what they kind of are. They are Daedra, but they also have their own little personality quirks, that sort of thing. And I learned that from Oblivion. Anyone else who's played Oblivion, you'll understand what's going on right here. And Ragni basically asks the Daedra what her name is, and she gives her a name, she gives the Starter's name, and then she's like, well, I'm Ragni. And then the Laura pretty much goes, okay, mortal. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, sure, they're nice, but still, you are an ant to them, regardless of how nice they are. Your name doesn't matter. You are still mortal. So I thought I'd add that in there to kind of people that recognise these sort of behaviours of those two Daedric races. Now, with this, obviously, Cecilia doesn't like the Richmond. There's a lot of history with her in the Richmond. A lot of the horrible things she's seen over the years. And she does go into describing that. But also, a certain character has taken the front gate with her. It doesn't want to be around him either. And that's because of a recent episode of where her brother was killed by the Forsworn in a different place. Two groups of different people, but still, you see the one group when pain has been brought upon you. Her brother was killed by the Forsworn at Hag's End, I think it was. And she doesn't want to be around these people because they killed her brother. And she's a werewolf. And even if pureborns get too angry, they could probably lose control. Not lose control, but when they get super angry, they turn to a werewolf and they could just feed into their own anger and slaughter people around them. I mean, they can definitely control their beast where turned or cursed can't. But if they get too angry, they will hulk out and they will feed into that anger and they will slaughter things around them. And so she wants to be at the front where she can't hurt anybody. Calm herself to anger. And Cecilia's like, yeah, I agree, man. These people are pieces of shit. I've seen absolutely horrible and evil things. In the background, you see the Dragonborn approaching. And she talks about the naivety of the Dragonborn, of, she's too kind, too merciful. These people don't deserve a chance. They're monsters. They're evil. Doesn't matter if this group could be good. There could be bad later on. There could be bad ones amongst them. They've done horrible, evil shit and that sort of stuff. And it does play into a bit of the story of, one of the first ones to join, Freya's friends. She turned them into werewolves recently. Both, I forgot their names. Vina, who is the Imperial Richman, and then of course the other one. Now their backstories are pretty much they were children. The Nord one, that her family was Richmond. They were Richmond. I mean, this is Skyrim. I mean, before the Forsworn mess, there would have been other Richmond in Skyrim that were Nords, and there's not more of them. There's none of them left anymore because the Bretons would have slaughtered them or killed them or whatever. I don't want to get too deep into that one, but Vina was taken from an imperial merchant family that they slaughtered, and they sent her to the witch to be sacrificed. And this is kind of the stuff that Cecilia talks about, how they sacrifice children to the Daedric princes, and she sees them as absolute evil. She references in the Daedra do this, but she understands that Daedra are evil. And that sort of behaviour, but seeing it come from humans, really, she did not like that one bit. And so she hates them. She does not like them. She doesn't think they deserve any sort of mercy or special treatment, anything like that. And that does play an effect on her age and what's happened to her in her life, her long life. But also it does clash with the ideologies of the Dragonborn, because like I said, the Dragonborn is kind and caring and wants to help and save people. Your typical generic hero that has to then clash with someone that's much older and has seen some horrible shit and has kind of been beaten into her ways of how she sees the world. At the end of the day, the Dragonborn is the commander, right? She is the leader. And these guys, regardless of their age, their experience, have to follow the Dragonborn. And the Dragonborn goes, alright, since you're not getting along with these people, since you don't want to help me save people's lives, if I can't trust you with other people's lives, then you have to rethink your values. Because I'm not going to have someone that is going to, that's going to spare some and kill others. And again, this is like the ideologies clashing, and Cecilia, is basically told to go to Solitude, deliver a message to let everyone know where they are for the night. And Cecilia goes, no. And she's like, what do you mean, no? You will do this. I mean, Ragnar's the only character that is both youthful and inexperienced that will stand up to these characters, especially standing up to Cecilia. I mean, rightfully so. You don't want to be standing up to Cecilia. The whole precipice of her story in this game, she's a 200-year-old solo killing machine. Vampires are pack creatures in a way. They need to huddle together to survive. She hasn't. For 200 years, she's wandered Skyrim, slaughtering massive amounts of groups on her own. There is a fearsome presence about her. And here's Ragnar, this young 19-year-old woman with, that's done fuck all in life. Just standing up and going, you'll do what I tell you to do. And that obviously pisses off Cecilia because no one has told her what to do. And rightfully so, because she's the oldest, mostly. The second oldest out of the entire group, and the most feared fighter they've got. Even during the daylight, she is an absolute weapon. And Cecilia does not like this. And there's a clash, like I said, their ideologies just clashing together. The young and youthful that wants to save the world, and then the old and experienced that has seen the harshness and the reality of it, clashing together. I mean, I agree with both sides personally. I mean, Ragnar hasn't seen the evil shit that Cecilia's seen. But at the same time, it's murky, it's grey. And that's kind of the way I like it. I mean, she is somewhat inexperienced in what Cecilia's seen, but at the same time, she doesn't want to sacrifice people's lives because they're not considered the greatest people. But she does reference the Reachmen during a time when she first arrived in Karlspire. They didn't attack her. I mean, where has there ever been a story in Skyrim's story where the Reachmen didn't attack anybody that wasn't one of them? And so that it has a lot of rapport for her that they didn't attack her on sight. They actually let her come in and stay the place and be in Skyhaven Temple surrounded by Reachmen. I mean, that to her was massively powerful because they all kill Nords. And yet they didn't for her. It could be a presence that she's the Dragonborn. They all felt this weird sense of do not attack the Dragonborn. Like everyone else, like this sort of weird sort of fate sort of thing that I talk about in my story. But they didn't attack her. And that's probably the only story in all of Skyrim where they haven't attacked anyone that wasn't a Nord. And so that meant a lot to the Dragonborn, and she doesn't want to kill these people. She doesn't want them to die because of past offences that these people might have done, or their people in the past, or different groups might have done. I mean, they're not really the Forsworn united anymore. They're just different tribes with different ideologies. And Karlspire, like I did in the past, they are more Reachmen than they are Forsworn. There's still definitely Forsworn amongst them, but they've lost the whole brain of wanting to free the world, free the reach of the Nords by killing anyone that isn't a Reachman. And even Serana's like, dude, you think that was a smart idea? Like, you're going to pay for that, 100%. And Ragnar goes, yeah, I know, but she needs to know if she's going to stand beside me, she needs to work with me. I can't have someone that's just going to let people die, and I don't stand for that. And that's kind of, she stands her ground, which is what I like about Ragnar, even though she's nowhere near experienced enough or strong enough to even face off against Cecilia, she still stands her ground on her values, and that is save lives. And Cecilia needs to learn that if she wants to follow her. So she, the Ragnar is here to help. And she references a lot with both Serana, that Serana will no doubt did horrible things in her past, which we'll get into a little bit in the future, but she's doing the right thing. She's seen evil shit, she's had evil shit done to her. But she's a positive force, and Cecilia has obviously seen and done these sort of things, but at the same time, if she should be able to see past what's happened. All that sort of crap, man. I'll spend like 20 minutes talking about this shit. I probably already have. Let's move on to something a little bit more better. Now, we finally returned to this place. Obviously, I never had Serana here. The main reason was because she was pissing me off as a companion, and I sent her away. And it also adds good parts to the story where these two love interests come close and they're torn apart, and that also worked out for the story. But she never got to be part of the Skyhaven journey of the Dragonborn because she was with the Dawnguard, because Ragnar sent her away. And this is the kind of conversation that goes into them exploring this place for the first time together. And Serana's done a bit of catching up with history, having to learn what's happened. She's a first era Nord, and she's missed the second, the third, and she's now in the fourth. So she had to do a lot of history, reading a lot of books to find out what's happened. And again, it's kind of her informing the Dragonborn. It's even talking about the Akaviri, how the ships used to raid Skyrim before their full invasion, and how she actually saw them. And she goes, their eyes are a bit funny. Obviously, nod to Asians, because that's the one race we don't actually have in Skyrim. Elder Scrolls, we've got black people, we've got white people, we've got all different kinds of white people. The French white people, the goddamn Norwegian white people, the typical maybe Roman white people. We've got the fantasy races, but we've got no Asians at all. None. So again, they probably come from Akavir, different sorts of races, and she references that sort of shit. But yeah, this is just a little mention of the histories of this door, the shit she's caught up on, and even meeting Akaviri herself. I thought that'd be a good little thing. Probably dragged the scene on for a little bit too long, but we'll actually go inside to the temple. I guess a bit more meatier, a bit more better, I guess. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying right here. I'm just going to move on. Now, she does basically, Serana asks her why the Akaviri bent the knee. She's read the history, and she's seen them. They're raiders, they're killers, and they're invaders, and yet they bent the knee to Ram and Cyrodiil. And she has no idea why. But Ragni tells her about what the Blades told her. And she doesn't really know much, because, again, Ragni doesn't want to talk about the Blades. They betrayed her, they hurt her. So she never really told Serana much about him. And this is kind of that point to where this is the exact spot where she exiled him, right after the treaty with the Imperials and Stormcloaks. And she brings them up. And then even Serana brings up their history, of their latest history, where they failed the last Dragonborn, Martin Septim. And she goes, well, they were loyal to themselves. Everyone that follows you is loyal to you. And it is a good point, because she doesn't want these people that failed the last Dragonborn around the current last Dragonborn. So she's like, yep, fuck them, pretty much. And look, this obviously hurt Ragni, because they helped her a lot in her journey to become Dragonborn, and helped her learn, find the word of power, and find the Alduin's War. They were a major part of her story, but their betrayal was, well, it was a heavy sting, pretty much. Now, I did try coming in here, turning all the lights off with certain mods, but it just wasn't working, so I just gave up on the idea, because it'd been so much cooler to come back in here with all the all the candles and all the torches out. I could have spent probably an hour in the creation kit doing that, but I didn't want to fuck around. I just thought I'd leave it the way it was. But yeah, it's kind of one of those cool moments where she's, this is the first time Serana's seeing this wall. And this wall is crazy, man, because the left side of it, in the middle of it, is pretty much the history of the people that carved this wall out. Right? They carved this part of the history out. This was history. But the right side of the wall was the future. Right? Whoever carved this part of the wall out during that time had literally carved out the future of Tamriel. So definitely fate is 100% written. That is what the Elder Scrolls are. They are fate, physically as a scroll. And everyone's stories, and they've mentioned this a lot, Serana being, was I chucked in the monolith because my mother thought I was a monster, or was I put there because of fate had to send me to you? That you would be the one to find me. I'd be the reason for you to fight on and have something to fight for, and all that sort of shit. But I really like this, how they kind of talk about it and explain it, and I don't know, I just really like the idea that, that even Ragni was able to give her own quote, her own prophecy, and then showed pieces of the wall that explained the prophecy before her. I think it was Elder Scrolls Daggerfall, I think it was, the Staff of Chaos. Then the Brass Tower Walks and Time is Rewritten, which is Talos, and his journey to rewrite time. Because he's the one that Brass Tower that walks was what basically stopped the Old Merry Dominion, or the last one. And then, of course, the gods shall die and the mountain shall explode, which was the Neverine of Elder Scrolls Morrowind. And the dragon, and then, of course, the Oblivion Gate, which was Martin Septim, and the Champion of Cyrodiil, and the Dragonborn ruler shall lose his throne. And then, of course, I don't really know all of them, but then the Bleeding of the Sundered Kings, which is obviously Skyrim's Civil War, and then depicting the last Dragonborn and the fight of Elduin, who's a man in Blade's armour. And Serana makes a bit of a joke and a remark about that, how depicted the Dragonborn to be a man, because that's what we all do, man. There's a hero with fate. We always depict it to be a bloke, but it turned out to be a woman. You know, fate might be written, but it's not completely known. I mean, we're going to get what we get out of it, and this is kind of it right here. That's Talos's bit. This, I think, I don't remember, maybe Morrowind. That is Oblivion, and then of course we've got Skyrim's prophecy. Right? No, that's Civil War. And then that is the Dragonborn's prophecy right there. So I thought it'd be kind of cool for these two characters to explore. Just a lot of this, fucking man, from the entire episode here is just these guys running around exploring the place. And this is where I think I dragged on for a bit too long. But again, I'm a character guy, not really a story guy. This is kind of where my problems come, I guess. I get too involved into the characters than I do the actual story, and the story revolves around the characters, and I don't even know me what I'm saying. I just do what I feel is right sometimes, even if it does at the end feel somewhat wrong or a bit too long and pacey. But this is just what I like to do. I like to put these characters together and mold them together and make a story out of it. I mean, I'm making the story because of the characters, not because of the story of the Elder Scrolls Skyrim. I've said this before. You know, everyone knows how it starts and how it ends, but the journey that is there to have is what makes the story the most exciting about Skyrim. That's how we play it. It's how it's built in between. Not from the start to the finish, but in between. Now, we do get into the point where they're in the armory, and she goes to show where she found the blade and the Elder Scroll, and Serana was a bit upset that she couldn't come along. She kind of explains why that the Dragonborn sent her away, and that it wasn't her choice. And Serana has had a bad time with being forced on certain paths, especially as she first became a vampire. She was raped and beaten to death by Merlin Ball, and then basically given orders for her entire life of being a vampire by a father or a mother. And then the Dragonborn forcing her away, not giving her a choice, which did hurt. But there's obviously reasons because of that. Main reason was because she pissed me off, personally. Second reason was because Ragnar didn't want to see the one person she'd fallen in love with again be killed by dragons, and she'd already lost too many people already. So that was the main story reason. But yeah, this kind of just I want to explain a little bit right there, that they're kind of really getting into the depths of their feelings in this little chapter. I guess sometimes certain places where one person has been or another hasn't kind of invoke certain feelings upon people, I guess. They become a bit more closer. Now, when I was doing this part of the story, this was where I really wanted to get meaty. You know, where I really wanted to flesh out Serana a lot more. I mean, every single mod that comes out, Serana's a drop-dead gorgeous chick. Her story is that she's a victim of two vampire parents that worship Merlin Ball. All this sort of shit. But end of the day, the funnest characters to explore aren't the innocent ones. They're the ones that were forced onto a certain path and fell prey to it, but that eventually turned back. The morally grey characters. And this is a spot where she kind of, was Sigarn talks about, this is where she spent her nights with Centaurus, even after her and Serana had fallen in love, after their paths were separated because of the Dragonborn problem. And, Ragni knows deep down that it does hurt her somewhat, that, finding out the person you fall in love with has sent you away, and then they're sleeping with somebody else on their journey. That would really hurt. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are, how old you are. If someone you love sent you away because they didn't want you hurt, and then you find out much later on they were sleeping with someone else on that journey, that's going to hurt and you're going to feel betrayed. And Serana's a little bit older. She understands a little bit about this, that she did what she needed to do. The reason the vision's very bright right now is because I use night vision as a vampire, because it's a bit more immersive. These creatures are creatures of the night. But, it's getting into the terms of Ragnar really wanted to tell Serana, that she's sorry, that she knew it was wrong, but she didn't know if she was going to live through those days. And having Centaurus there, it made her feel less alone, and it made her stop missing Serana so much. It distracted her, and she'd already been with Centaurus one night. Centaurus was her very first sexual partner, when she was a bard, and they met at the Bard's College at Solitude. And so, it was comfortable for her because it's someone she's already been with, but it's someone that made her feel safe. And at the end of the day, she knew it was wrong, and she didn't like that, but it's something that helped her get by and be with somebody that she'd been close with before. And this is kind of the confrontation of it all, where they actually sit down and talk about it. But it kind of then spins off to where, Ragnar's gone in depth of what she thought was wrong, and it's now time for Serana to really let Ragnar know who she's really with. I mean, throughout the journey, it's it's really heavily applied that Serana's a victim. You know, that she was, you know, that she gave herself to Merlek Ball. Was she given to Merlek Ball by her parents? I mean, you know, being part of a, you know, a Merlek Ball cult's bad enough. But I really wanted to kind of, a lot of the things I see and read, especially in my job, I do disability and mental support. A lot of the people that do certain horrible things were victims of it previously. And so I really want to explore maybe a dark past for Serana, you know, in her early days, because there's so much there that just isn't really discussed. Like, why was she in the castle for so long? Why was she locked away? You know, what did her father use her for? So I really want to go in depth, and I really want to explain that and flip the story a bit to where her father didn't necessarily force her to go and do these things, that she willingly went and did them because her mother kept her safe and locked away. And that's the reason why she's not so ancient like Cecilia is, because she never had a chance to grow into her own person. You know, she was 19, 18, 20 when this all happened to her, and her parents were always just there. So she was like a man, you know, like, or, you know, that never left home, that was always mothered, you know, stuff like that. It's pretty much that story. She never had the chance to grow up. So Cecilia is somewhat mentally older than her. This is like the first year of her actual freedom of her own life. You know, being around Ragni, and this is her first steps on her own personal life. So she somewhat still is young. She's lived a lot longer than any of these characters have, but she never had the chance to grow up on her own. And so this is where she really tells Ragni the truth about, you know, her past, that she isn't this beautiful young vampire that, you know, that maybe Ragni is led to believe she is, the victim of her parents' crimes. She is in a way, but she gets really in depth with her past, and she needs to tell Ragni this, because Ragni was a vampire hunter and is a very good person, and maybe if Ragni hears this, she might not see her the same anymore, and that's 100% fair, because, well, you know, it's some twisted shit that she talks about. You know, she describes that being locked away from her mother, it drove her nuts, having to communicate with rats or skeletons or parents' minions. She never had a deep, meaningful conversation with anybody, you know, that wasn't undead or wasn't a minion, you know, of her parents or her parents themselves. And when her father gave her the chance to go out and do things for him, she did them because she was just so bored, lonely and crazy staying on her own. And she learnt to enjoy what she was doing by being dominant, by seducing her father's enemies or rivals and getting to do what they want, by crushing them if she needed to, by holding power over them. And, you know, she became the very creature she was made to be. You know, a dominant vampire, a creature of power and domination and stuff like that. And, you know, she goes really in depth to a certain scene in her life to an Eastern lord that, you know, that her father couldn't really get to. And he said his young, pretty daughter to go and seduce, but the man wouldn't. And so she went there, and he wouldn't even bend to Serana, being a young, pretty vampire. And it upset her and made her mad because no one tells her no. You know, she, in that place of her life where she was just all-powerful. And so she raped him. You know, she, like I said beforehand, Serana is a creature of rape and domination from the prince, and, you know, and so this is kind of, she was made this weapon, and she became this weapon. And like I said beforehand, a lot of people that commit rape and stuff like that, a lot of them actually were raped when they were younger. Not all of them, of course. It's a fucking heinous crime. But a lot of them follow suit of what happened to them. They are sort of products of their environment and past. And Serana goes really in depth about this, and then she talks about ripping out his throat's wife, and then when his kids came in screaming and crying over their dead mother, she ripped his head off. Like, complete and utter evil version of Serana, of her past. The heinous shit she did. You know, raping a man, killing his wife in front of him, ripping his head off in front of his children, walking out butt-ass naked, covered in blood with a severed head. Everyone scared shitless of her. I mean, she gets really in depth of her past, of how dark it really was, how, you know, following her father's instructions turned her into an absolute monster. And her mother saw that, and her mother devised a plan, especially when he got stuck on the prophecy of the sun. we all kind of see her as stubborn. She gave her daughter to a Daedric prince, and she did, but she was still a mother at heart, and doesn't, even some mothers that do bad things, they do them for the right reasons sometimes. I wouldn't say it's the right reason giving your daughter to a Daedric prince is going to rape and kill him. That's pretty fucked. But even later on, Valerica basically devised a plan to stop her husband, but to save her daughter, from herself, pretty much. And this is why the reason I put it that she was locked up. Because I do mention that Serana went into a Durrani city, and the Durrani are like ancient elves that from, they're like the aliens, but they were in High Rock. And she went into that city and slaughtered them for the Elder Scrolls of the Sun, because maybe they worshipped Ariel similar to what the Snow Elves and the Ultima did. And then she got the Elder Scroll blood from a Morrowind clan, like the Burren clan. I think they're one of the most ancient. I couldn't find how they were started, so I just, boom. And during that time, I'm pretty sure the first era, the Dark Elves were there, because by then the Charmer, I think, were already... The Charmer, I think... I'm not too sure. 100%. I'm not too sure. I just wing half this shit. But she talks about her past and the horrible things she did, and then her mother devised a plan to stop her father from blackening the sun, but also by saving her daughter from herself, and chucked her in the monolith to wake her up one day when it was all good and sorted, but that never happened. Fate had already said that it wasn't her mother that was going to wake her up, it was someone else of, that being the Dragonborn. Kind of like the whole, like I say, fate is already written. It's just how it plays out. And that sort of thing, and they kind of they talk about that a lot. Was I put there because my mother wanted to save me, or was I put there because fate wanted me to be here to meet you? And I think Ragni really accepts that. She's like, I hope it did, because you're the reason why I want to fight on. I have something to fight for, not just a reason to fight, but someone to fight for. And it's a bit of a thing. I expect Ragni to be in a situation to explode, be like, what the fuck, you were a monster. But at the end of the day, she's already seen Serana, and she's already become a vampire and understood the cost of it all, the power, the thirst, the hunger. They're not just blood-sucking creatures that are evil, but they're people that were cursed and are suffering. And then she met Parthenax, who was a dragon that once no doubt dominated and slaughtered thousands of innocent people that turned away from that path to do good. And she's learnt a lot in her time, that she realises that past actions don't really define who we've become. And what we're doing. I mean, if you can turn away from the path of evil and point your path to a better one, then the Dragonborn's got time for you. If you are... And that's just kind of the way it is. I mean, she's taken in Daedra, especially a Demora that was part of the Skyrim invasion of the Oblivion Crisis. And, again, vampires. I mean, she's become a lot more tolerable. But she sees it's not about what you... And that's why she kind of clashed with Serana. Because she's not stuck in the past when it comes to people's past. She wants to see what they can become of their future, what they can do with their lives. And that's what's most important to her, so what you can become and not what you were. Who you are can always change, but who you were will always stay the same. But again, who you are and what you can become can always change, and that's the way she sees things. And that's why she clashes with Serana, because... it's not Cecilia, because it just... Cecilia's so stuck in the past that she can't see what's happening around her, the future, the possibilities, that she's just so wide to keep... Because she's lived such a... I'll get into that in a little bit in the future, but that's kind of why her and Ragni clash, because, they're in two different places. One's stuck in the past and one doesn't care much for it. I thought this would be a good place to come and visit, because quite simply, it's the same tree from... I don't know if it's modelled or not, but it's a very nice place, and could be the tree under Kennerith's where she meditates, and she does, and it's a sort of brand new meditation that she goes through, being up in a higher place in Tamriel, not so high, but up higher, and obviously under the tree of Kennerith, the Elder Gleam. Now, we get into Cecilia walking back and having some rather conversation with herself, not liking the Dragonborn so much because of her youthfulness, her not knowing what the world is really like, and we kind of get into this because... I mean, she decided to stay a vampire to do good, right? We've seen that with Chapter 1. She decided to stay with this course because, it was... She could do some good with it. But after 200 years of Skyrim, I mean, we're not meant to live that long, right? The older we get, the bitter we get. But eventually we die. She doesn't. And she's seen the most horrible shit replay and replay and replay over and over and over. I mean, she's killed these bad guys, and 10 years later they've resurfaced, or a few years later and the evil shit keeps happening. So she's living in this constant state of limbo, where she just can't seem to get out of it, where it's just constantly people are dying around her all the time. And that really sucks, because it's just kind of wired her into this permanent state of the shit, you know? It's just, she's constantly stuck in this zone where she's expecting the worst to happen all the time. She's constantly just living in doubt that no good will ever come. And this is kind of where she's stuck at. She's stuck in this endless cycle of just the world is shit and it's full of evil people. And again, 200 years of doing that will do that to a person. It will wire them all the wrong way. Regardless if they started off in a good path, it does turn you into something different. And she does explain that to someone that's around the Dragonborn's age. You know, she does reference that if, you know, the Dragonborn, you know, if they slaughtered all the Reachmen, all the Forsworn, that her brother would still be alive. And things like that. And this is kind of just a bit of a wake-up call for Cecilia, in a way. I mean, at the start of that, you know, where Ragni and Cecilia had their confrontation, I was really expecting, like, you know, Cecilia's going to come back a bit more of a harsh ass, and really put the Dragonborn in her place and bully her a little bit, but maybe this is a time to reflect on what she's become and who she's become and what she could become in the future following the Dragonborn. You know, to kind of stop seeing the way she's seen the world, maybe see it from a different perspective. Now we just skip forward a little bit because I wanted to have a conversation with the priestess. Now Cecilia has been here before because she did the Wolf Queen quest line, but back then, you know, she wasn't completely known as a vampire, or it's just the Dark Knight wasn't even a figure that was known. You know, it was just a woman in black armor. You know, but she'd been seen an unknown boogeyman pretty much, and you know, this priestess is like, you can't bring your weapons in here, blah, blah, blah. And she looks at the weapon and starts whispering to her. And that is a nod to Umbra, which is pretty much an essence of a Daedric Prince sword that controls its user. It absorbs them and takes over their soul, and their body becomes Umbra. But Cecilia is a vampire. Her soul cannot be taken by Umbra because it's already taken by Molag Bal. So she's the perfect one to wield this weapon. And she's seen it before in the Oblivion Crisis. That'll be a fun one to write when it comes along. But yeah, so she's you know, and then kind of the whole boogeyman thing is coming to truth, but people start to realise who she is, and the priestess freaks out. She's like, "Are you a vampire? Oh no, you're a vampire! How'd you get in here?" And all this sort of bullshit, you know. And yeah, it's she's like, "Oh, you had to be joking with me. You don't look like a vampire." And Cecilia's like, "Of course, I'm not a vampire, I'm only joking," while her eyes are rolling to the back of her head, and all that sort of stuff. And then she realises what's going on with Centaurus, and she's like, "Oh, that sucks," you know. But she's very firm that if someone needs to die, they'll die. But yeah, I just thought it'd be a little bit of a funny thing to do for Cecilia and the priestess, and kind of finding what's going to happen to Centaurus, because he's going to play an important part in the future of the story. I can tell you that for sure. Anyway, let's skip on. Now, Cecilia is a bit of a weird character for me because I always see her as straight, but she's not actually straight. Not anymore, at least. But kind of like, if you've been around for 200 years and you've been this ugly monster that no one wants to be around, you feel a bit inhuman. And when someone does make you feel human and wanted and special, you kind of fall prey to that, you know? It doesn't matter how long you live for, you still feel somewhat human. And Zarita, when she took Zarita in, who was a vampire she found, Zarita was a lesbian. She had a female lover. And then seeing Cecilia and being around Cecilia, she attached herself to Cecilia and liked her. And they did share a few nights together, even though Cecilia doesn't like the company of women, which doesn't make much sense. But after 200 years, I'm not too sure she really gives a shit anymore. And having someone that physically wanted her to be around her was important to her because, like I said, she'd gone 200 years without anyone really wanting her in that way. And then having someone want her in that way, that was someone that was like her, a vampire, it meant a lot to her, and they shared a few nights together. But Cecilia kind of pulled away from that because she was like, this isn't an appropriate relationship. You know, and again, I don't actually like women that way. So she pulled away from Zarita and their bedtime activities because she thought it was inappropriate. And, you know, it's not that she doesn't like sex, it's just that, you know, the last person she had it with that was purely meaningful was the Crusader in the story, and the person she loved. And then she ends up talking about Zarita and finding Zarita or looking for Tonrak, which is kind of a bit of an odd thing. Now, again, she comes here to inform Tonrak what's Ragnar doing, and she informs him that Minerva was badly hurt, and he freaks out, and he goes and grabs his armor, and he's like, "No, I don't give a fuck, dude. I'm going there right now." So he's going to travel there at night time. Now, of course, Zarita, being the kind person she is, even she's half of what Ragnar is. She's half of what Cecilia is. She is a vampire, but she's also a fledgling. She's only been a vampire for like a year, so she's still part of this natural world. She isn't like Cecilia, but she's a woman out of time. So she's, she can definitely mold a lot more to the current people than Cecilia, being the cruel ancient vampire that she is. So she will basically escort Tonrak back to Skyhaven Temple to be with Minerva to make sure she's okay, because he deeply cares about her. He's having a bit of a realisation of his own in the last chapter and the time he has had to heal and all that sort of stuff. But again, that wasn't the most exciting part about this little thing. It was the eye-opener for Cecilia. And the AI, man, holy fuck. I want to get into that. Let's have a quick look. So, basically, Cecilia's pissed off, she's angry, and Zarita's the only person she really shares something in common with, because they're both vampires, and she's trained Zarita, and they've shared a few nights together, and she's just kind of sick of everyone treating her like she's this cranky old evil vampire. To her, she's a realist. She's seen this world. She knows what it's all about. She's stuck in her ways. And Zarita's like, give him a break, this and that, blah, blah. And then Zarita's like, oh, not you too. But then Zarita's like, I'll always pick you. You were the one that saved me. She gets really deep and really tells Cecilia how she thinks about her, that she even loves her. Because after Rosella was gone, the woman that she loved was killed, she really fell in love with Cecilia, the woman that saved her life. And those nights together were quite special to her, and she really tells Cecilia how she sees her. And this is, like I said, Cecilia fell prey to having sex with her because Zarita made her feel wanted. And now Zarita's doing it again by telling her how much of a wonderful person she is, that she's, that she sees her in a different light than what the others do, and that she wants the others to see Cecilia how she does. But she needs to give them a chance. She needs to show them who she actually is, and not what they all see her as, this dark-armoured vampire that's cruel and, merciless and that sort of stuff. And it's a very beautiful moment, I'll say, that, that it really opens up Cecilia's eyes, even to herself, realising that she's not this harsh, cruel vampire, that she did all this for the right reasons, that she's been trapped in this kind of limbo of constantly fighting evil. And it's wired her somewhat bad, where she no longer sees the good in people, all the hope in the world. She just constantly sees the bad, because she's lived way too long and she's seen way too much of it on repeat. And Zarita's there to tell her that she deeply cares about her, that she's a wonderful and beautiful person, that she raised a werewolf child, the Daedric Prince, when she was a Daedric Prince hunter, that she, instead of cutting Zarita down on the spot for being a vampire, she took her in and trained her, and held her during those nights when she was having vampire nightmares and nightmares of losing the love of her life, and spent those nights naked with her under the sheets, even though she wasn't into women, which makes no sense, but is what it is. But yeah, and she pretty much tells Cecilia what she thinks of her, and this is what Cecilia really needs to hear. She really needs to hear someone tell her that she's not this cold-hearted vampire, that she's just a woman that's been through some seriously dark shit, that's done some seriously good things. And I really like that. I really like there's someone there that really kind of opens Cecilia's eyes to herself, and that's a very beautiful thing. It really is. It's letting Cecilia see a real reflection through someone else's eyes, and she's not really liked amongst my people that enjoy this story. She's kind of seen as a bitch, and rightfully so, because she comes off as one. She's cold-hearted in a way. She's a bit cranky, but again, that is because of her life, what she saw when she was a human, and what she's seen since, with everything in Skyrim, the 200 years of just repeat, bad. She's put herself in that environment all this time to kill those people, and having someone tell her how they think of her, she's a really good person, just something that she really needed to hear, to understand herself. And I really like that. And she's going to try and tell Zarita during this conversation to go and talk to Phalion, because there's quite a bit there. I will get into that in the future, but I'll get into that when we finally get around to that conversation of the NPCs. But Zarita being Zarita, she's like, I've got to go put my armour on. I've got to make sure that Tonrak gets back to Skyhaven alive, because nighttime is a dangerous time to travel with predators and wolves and that sort of stuff. But also in a fantasy world, there's vampires and all other sorts of nasty creatures. It's probably better to not travel at night, and if you do, make sure that you travel one of those nasty creatures, so you have a better chance of getting there. A much better chance. Other than that, I do want to bring up this. What Ragni said, man. Holy fuck, the AI is nuts, bro. This bit right here. Listen to what. Now, I write all this shit, right, and I try to make it sound human as possible by putting like an I, I, so we like I, because we all stutter when we get deep into our feelings and try to talk about it, I don't know, we do those things. I just did it then with we, Day Junior, and I do these things in the AI to kind of make it sound more human, because I want it to feel, and I'll put tags on the side of it like quotation mark, she feels compelled, or she feels sad, or she feels happy, and this is try and give a bit more emotion, and I go another quotation mark, and then I write the line, and the AI says it. And listen, dude, this is one of the most craziest things. I've had 2 of these where it brought up real emotion, where it felt way too real. Listen to this.
Wow. I really needed to hear that. I didn't know.
Even the breath. I was like, what the fuck? Like, this AI breathes, man, which is wild. And then I didn't know. I mean, dude, that is wild.
She loved me. I will admit, I do feel comfort around her. We are the same. We fight the same war. Maybe after so long, I guess having someone just want me.
I mean, dude, the AI is fucking nuts, bro. I mean, like, that sounded it made Cecilia feel really human in a way. I mean, she's an NPC. She's not real. And yet, somehow the AI just made her feel real. It was superb. I had to keep the line, even though I didn't like the whole bit where he goes, it excites me. I was meant to say, it's exciting, but I was like, fuck that, we're keeping the line, it's too good. So we go outside, when Ragni is in her meditation, some time goes past. Like, she's had meditations before, but nothing this deep. And it could be that she's beside a tree of Kinnereth. Could be that, but she's kind of just like zoned out. And like, she's seen a few visions of words of power. But, she's in a few of them all at once. And she's kind of like, for her it was just like a matter of seconds, but she wakes up and it's been a few hours. It's like, this is crazy to her that it's now nighttime. And what's going on nighttime is, there's only like a shred of sunlight left in the horizon. And they have this conversation, her and Serana, and this is kind of Serana going, like, I'll always be here. I'll always be by your side no matter how long. And I get this funny enough, from the Legends of Korra. Because when Korra goes in to meditate, it's Asami that sits beside her and watches over her. And I really liked that aspect. I really did like that aspect of Legends of Korra, so I thought I'd borrow that to where the love interest will always watch over the other one while they meditate. The sort of protective nature of sure, Ragi might be the Dragonborn. She might be pretty strong. Serana's also pretty strong, but I mean, sometimes there are some that are born to protect the many, and there are even fewer born to protect them. And I think it's, obviously Ragni is the protector of the many, and Serana is the protector of Ragni, sort of thing. I love that sort of dynamic. It was a bit of a shortcut, good night, see you later, but I guess when she tells you that I'm excited to go and have a bit of fun later tonight, it kind of puts Serana into overdrive, and she's like, yep, I'll see you there. Boom, see you later. It was actually a really beautiful night. Now, if you're wondering, I got this question on Discord, why my stars are flickering. It's because of DOF, depth of field, from the EMB. It will make the sky... I actually kind of like it when it doesn't, but I guess when it twinkles, it's very beautiful. Now, we get in this conversation where both Serana and... got his name? Bloody hell. I have the conversation much later on in the afternoon. They were, like I said, they were kids. They caught up, and they're catching up with each other after 10 years, on very different parts of their lives, and I thought I'd just add that there to kind of bridge off to the next conversation between Ragni and Sigurd having that conversation. So I thought, why not? I mean, Torvid, he might become, if he lives through all this, if he doesn't get killed by a dragon or something else, he might have his way, a bit more of an important story in the future Civil War stories and things like that, which is pretty cool. implementing himself into the Dragonborn story, then sort of weaving himself into the future of the Civil War stories. I like that. Hopefully he does live. If he doesn't, that'd be sad and shit, but again, it's all about improving the characters and the story along with it. Now, I will mention the voice that Carsten uses in this is a brand new clone AI one that I use of, I think it's the female, the male even-toned accented, I think it is. So brand new voice line for him. And also, again, the AI getting a little too real. Let's listen to this.
Don't be such a kiss-ass, Karsten. Sort of thing a milk drinker would do.
Now, the laughing is actually in-game dialogue that I've used, because AI cannot... It sometimes does laugh, but on its own, it's weird. But yeah, I wrote that line with a tag, she says while laughing. And you hear when she goes, don't be a kiss-ass, tossed. You know, you hear that little giggle in her voice when she does it. Like, you can physically hear that, don't be a kiss-ass, Costin. You know, like it's fucking weird, dude. Like, oh, the emotion that... It felt like she was saying those lines while she was humorous. It was awesome.
Now that you're back with the living...
I had to add these lines in post-production because I forgot about them. But, yeah, this is kind of a realisation, especially, you know, at this time of the night, Sigan was going to go see Centaurus at the college, at the temple, and it didn't happen. And then here she is camping outside the moment where she was sitting down where Centaurus brought her dead sister back to her. And this was a big change in her evolution, to her characteristics, to Centaurus. I mean, she got along with him, you know, if she needed to, and you know, she's a friendly kind of person in a way. But this was that moment that really changed her entire perspective of Centaurus. She did try to kill him afterwards, but she realised how wrong she was and what kind of man he truly was from that point on. That, you know, she had massive respect for him, that she no longer considered him an enemy or an adversary, but an actual friend. And being here while she imagined her night being with Centaurus, you know, talking to him, obviously it was heavy on her heart, and she just got the Dragonborn to speak to her about, you know, Centaurus. It wasn't anything super important, but it was someone that she could talk to, because she knows how she feels. You know, Ragni knows how she feels about Centaurus, and Ragni's accepting of it, where her own men and even others might not be. And, you know, someone she can actually talk to, get the things off her chest, and that's kind of what's really important about this sort of situation, that they can talk like sisters in a certain regard. And, you know, this is one of the first trips they've gone out without Centaurus, and they both feel somewhat alone in a certain way, that, you know, it's not the same without him here. And this is my entire first episode without having him even in it, which is kind of strange. But yeah, they both feel the effects of not having him nearby. And Ragnar gets into the whole, you know, there's a decision I need to make, and it's about if he follows us or not. And Sigun's like, yep, straight away, bring him on, you know, do what he needs to do. If he can come back to us, do it. She doesn't know what it is, but she will eventually. And yeah, it's just her getting her shit off her chest, pretty much. She's feeling alone, she's feeling sad, and you know, she's kind of come back to the area where it all, you know, the exact spot to where the first time she saw him as Centaurus, not just some Imperial soldier. I mean, this, you know, it's coming back to the one place where she's, you know, that meant the most in their sort of companionship, and without him there, without him even being there, makes it all the more difficult for her, and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's that little moment that really kind of, sort of, it's just a sisterhood moment in a way, you know. It's that these two chicks that have become sisters in their journey together. They can just talk to each other, and so, you know, you're not a Stormcloak, I'm not a Dragonborn, we're just two women that understand each other, because Ragni fell in love with her enemy, and Sigun's doing the exact same for hers. And it's a little beautiful moment between just two women that can talk to each other openly without having to worry about anything else. It's beautiful. Now, I am thinking of like a small little scene. I added this saying, it's not really at all bloody consequential to the actual story of the chapter. I just wanted to chuck a bit of flavour in there. I've got an idea for like another little series that'll pop in during the Journey to the Dragonborn. It's still related to the Dragonborn. It's just something a little bit different, not led by the Dragonborn. And I kind of just wanted to blend around with the idea of Freya, you know, being out front, talking about that she likes the outdoors, you know, she doesn't like walls and that sort of shit. And yeah, she gets to finally meet Moonshadow, who is a pureborn just like her from elsewhere. And, you know, she's kind of, you know, she figures that the people of elsewhere actually worship her werewolves. But at the same time, it's very different, you know, like, she's a pack creature. She turns people that want to be turned. She takes people that are cursed. She looks, you know, pureborn is meant to be like leaders, right, amongst the werewolves. And she realizes that, you know, that these people are worshipped in elsewhere, but they're not allowed to breed. They're not allowed to take cursed people in. Oh, my bad. And they're not allowed to turn people, you know. So she's like, fuck that. I want nothing to do with that. So we get quite a bit... pardon me. They kind of had this conversation of two pureborns blending from two different places in Skyrim. You know, Elsewhere's the very south of Tamriel, and Skyrim's the very north. And they learn the differences of their cultures of the pureborn werewolves and sort of things. We even have Borka, who has something to say about, you know, selective breeding, because, you know, Freya's like, dude, you guys... She's a bit of an animal. She's like, if you're ever looking to spice things up and not break any rules because you can't fall pregnant with me, we could try something I've never tried Khajiit before. And she's a bit of a deviant. You know, I made her a bit too freeing. And the Wood Elf is like, dude, you are sick, bro. You are you are an actual dog. You're an animal. You know, you turn into one, and then you want to hunt everything that's got legs. And then the conversation kind of rolls into, like, why is a goddamn Wood Elf part of the Stormcloak Rebellion? We've already seen a High Elf. That's pretty wild. Why is there a Wood Elf, you know, with the Stormcloaks? And she explains that of her history of being hunted by the Thalmor, you know, leaving Valenwood, going into Cyrodiil, getting chased into Cyrodiil, fleeing north and being saved by the Bearclaw Raiders, and joining them because they saved her life. And like I said beforehand with Torvid, you know, there's no safer place to be against the people fighting the people hunting you. So went into that. But yeah, I just want to chuck this little conversation between these characters in, just because I'm a character guy, and I kind of want to see how it'd mould with a sort of brand new group, you know? Not a group, those that follow the Dragonborn, but those that aren't with the Dragonborn are kind of sitting by doing nothing all day, and we might have some commanders take charge and go out and hunt dragons or hunt the Draga or do something in between while the Dragonborn's out there not using these people. Someone might actually rally them and put them to actually good use, and that's kind of the idea for another series I want to do. Yeah, that's just an idea. But I wanted to chuck this in there to see how it would play out with just people that aren't really associated with the Dragonborn, apart from Freya, of course, and that sort of thing. So I definitely thought, by the time I got to here, I was like, man, you've gone too far with the story, bro. You've just dragged it on. You've dragged it on way too much. But, like I said, I'm a character guy. I fall prey to just blending characters together, and I've got way too fucking many of them right now. So I've got a lot of time and just thought of combining these characters together, mashing them up like Plato, and seeing how that goes. Is that what they call Plato? Because it sounds like potato? Huh. I didn't even think about that until right now. The life shit you think of sometimes. Absolutely fucking wild. Anyway, yeah, I'm not going to get into how the chapter ends, because the chapter ends kind of how it starts. Oh, sorry, the episode. It ends exactly how it starts. It's something I like to do in these episodes is kind of... It ends off where it starts off. I don't know if YouTube will crack the shits by seeing butt cheeks at the very end of that, but there was no genitals shown. There was no nothing. It's just the shape of a rather pale lady on a bed. Okay, so please, YouTube, don't be an arsehole, because I come across a thumbnail a couple of days ago or a week ago with a naked Argonian with his dick out and everything. Okay, so fucking hell, YouTube, settle your shit. Do not bully me, for crying out loud. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this entire conversation and arc sort of thing. I do these just because I like doing them. You know, it's like the background DVD you get in old DVDs when you used to buy them physically back in the day. So yeah, hopefully, if you've got any questions, like, I'll leave the comments open. I don't give two shits. Comment here, comment on my major video. Do what you want. End of the day, I make these stories just so people can, you know, have a story to watch and inspired to do their own, or maybe jump back into Skyrim after many years not playing it and that sort of stuff. I just do this because I love doing it. That sort of thing. So, yeah, let me know what you think. It's always good to hear from the community. It's always good fun to grow it too. There's a Discord in my on my channel. If you click on my links and that sort of stuff, there'll be a Discord there if you want to come in. It's very relaxed, very chill, no bullshit sort of thing. Just a typical Discord where we all talk a bit of shit and this and a bit of that, and I'm not going to get too deep into it. Other than that, cheers for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed. And like I said previous videos, whatever I've said, I forgot. Giving it a like and a comment helps it find more people, and it's always great to grow the community. Other than that, I'll never make money from this, so don't worry about me looking for money. I spend money making this shit. I hope you've enjoyed, and if you haven't, even let me know. It's always good to hear feedback, because it always makes the story better. Especially, you know, when I hear about people not liking characters, it's always a bigger drive to kind of make it more likable, a bit more understandable from a certain point of view. Other than that, I'm out of here. I'll catch you guys in another video. Look after yourselves.